Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the What Worked For You show. Today I've got the pleasure of interviewing someone who's not just a top producing realtor, the number one realtor in the Memphis market. Now, Memphis is not a small town. I mean, it's not New York City, but there's a lot of people there. But here's the thing, not only is she number one in Memphis, she is the number one in the social media space for all of Tennessee. I don't live too far from Tennessee. It's a big place. There's a lot of people there. When you're number one across the state in anything, you are doing something right. And she is doing a lot of things right. A 15-year plus career in the world of real estate. She co-owns her own brokerage. She has done flips. She's worked with fashion. She has worked with home remodeling. She gets it, and she is a savvy marketer, which has helped propel her to success, which if you've worked with realtors, you know marketing can be an area that may not be quite what you sign up for when you list your property for sale. So without further ado, Shannan McWaters, pleasure to have you on today. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk today.
Wonderful. Let's dive in. You are currently the number one agent. You're number one. And you know what? First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you, because when you're number one, it's a privilege. So thank you for that. But you've also been a top ranked agent in social media for an entire state. You've made your mark. People know who you are. You get things done. You get the results. You make things happen. What's been the key to building that kind of standout presence? Because real estate agent field is a crowded field.
You know, when I started 15 years ago, most realtors looked the same and acted the same and sold the same. And when I started, I wanted to fit in. And so I wore a blazer with a little pin on it. And, and I walked in and I was very professional. And I thought that's what people expected of me. And I did things exactly like all the realtors before me. My mentor was older. And so I did things the old school way. And I learned a lot of foundational things. But as things started evolving in our world and marketing started changing, a couple of key things happened that kind of transitioned into a more authentic version of agent that I am now. One thing was one day someone called me to come by for a listing, and usually I'm over prepared and have lots of numbers and papers and lots of things to talk about. And I have my perfect blazer on, and I didn't have time to do this in this particular day. I was in shorts and heels and a shirt because I was doing something not work related. And it was the only time they could see me. So I said, well, I'm not really prepared, but I'll just come by and meet you, because they were leaving to go out of town. And something kind of clicked because I went more as myself. And I'm quirky, I'm awkward, I'm silly. I'm not a corporate type gal. And so, but something happened because I was more myself. I relaxed. I was more comfortable. And I think that these clients really felt that. And I even said, I don't even know what your house is worth. This is the first time I've been in your neighborhood. And I was just honest. But I sat down with them and I connected with them. And they called me that afternoon and said, we interviewed 5 other agents, and we want to talk to you more. We want you to list our house. We don't know what you're going to sell it for or what you're going to do, but we felt a connection with you and we want to use you. And something just clicked with me that day that that's who needs to show up, the real version of me. So that was one thing that kind of started my journey. The other thing is I started making videos in 2014, 2015. And at the time on Instagram, you couldn't post a video, you could only post photos. And so I had a listing coming up that had a swimming pool. And it's in a neighborhood that you usually don't get a pool. So I asked a lot of veteran agents, how do I market a property that has a pool? And they said, well, we're going to tell you a little secret, but don't tell anybody. You can put, it's not allowed, it's against the rules, but you can put the first photo as the pool, because it's supposed to be the exterior of the home and you might get in trouble. And I said, that's it. That's what we can do. And they're like, you can run an ad in the paper. I'm like, okay. I just felt helpless. So I recruited a couple of my girlfriends, and we pretended to jump the fence and jump in the pool fully clothed while my seller was out of town. And I put it on Facebook. And my broker at the time and husband said, "You're going to get us kicked out of real estate. You can't do this. This is not how we sell homes." And a lot of people did not love what I was doing and thought it was undignified. But there was a group of people that said, "You're onto something." And that was great. Other agents that gave me really good feedback, and the clients loved it. And a lot of people saw that video, and it worked, and the house sold. And about 6 years later, I was in a listing appointment, and I talked about my role on social media, and that it's part of my presentation now. And the owner said, "I saw the funniest thing a long time ago. There was a girl that jumped in a swimming pool in this house in Kirby Woods." And I said, I pulled up the video and I said, "That was me." And they couldn't believe it. So now everybody makes a video. It doesn't sound that different, but at the time it really was. And they were rough, some of them, but it started something with me that you could do things differently, that it didn't have to be stuffy, it didn't have to be uptight, that people it's stressful, and that they want you to help relieve their stress, and maybe even have the illusion that it can be fun even though it's really not. So I would say those are the two most foundational things, is that I got in touch with who I really was, because people can sense when you're not that. And that I became unafraid to try things that most people weren't doing.
You know, I love that, because I think about all the times I've talked with agents, and I've got a number of friends that are agents that I've known now for years, and we have a great relationship. But every time I meet a new one, like, and I'm not a homeowner, I'm an investor, but nevertheless, I'm calling someone such as yourself oftentimes to sell our property, or perhaps to get leads. And the thing that I love is you're selling authenticity. And as you were sharing that story, I think to myself, how many times have I called an agent, broker, doesn't matter, and I was told what I wanted to hear, not the authentic, what I needed to hear from what they had to offer. And so when you were talking about the blouse and the jacket and all that, and I was like, yeah, I think a lot of us, whether homeowners or agents, or I'm sorry, investors, can relate to that. How did you get the confidence to break through against the mold, right? Because it still hasn't changed that much. It's 15 years later. It hasn't changed very much.
It because I saw results. I'm very result oriented. And last week, I had a client call me, and she was unsure what to do. They're really unhappy with their HOA right now, and there's a lot of things going on, and they should be unhappy with it. It's going to cost them some money, but they love their house, they love their property. Her husband had a stroke a couple of years ago. It rocked their world. She has started to think, what if something happens to him? Um, and they bought at a really good time. So they paid $800,000 for a house that's worth about 1.4 right now. And she said, "We're so unhappy. Should we go ahead and sell now? We still have a kid that has 2 more years of school. And so we're just not sure what to do." And of course, I want a $1.4 million listing. It would be a house that would sell like that, even though a lot of things aren't selling like that. It's a rare property with some land in an area that we would sell it right away. And that would be a nice commission. But I know this family, and we connected when I listed their house and helped them buy this property several years ago. Um, and I knew what was best for their family, because if they sold that house right now, they're going to have to go buy something else and live here for 2 years. They're going to pay a very similar thing that they paid when they bought that house, $600,000 or $700,000, to have a much smaller home, not on the land that they love, not in the home that they love, and they're going to pay a pretty high price, and then have to turn around and sell it because they may move out of town in 2 years. Instead of just saying what they wanted to hear, "Oh, your house is great, now's the time to sell," I told her the truth. And I just said, "You guys just need to stay there for 2 years. Your house is one of those houses we could sell at any time. And it's not a good idea to do it right now. Not for your family. I'll sell it if you want to, but I don't think it's in the best interest of your family." And the husband reached out to me later and he said, I can't tell you how much that means to us that you didn't just try to get a commission, that you want what's best for our family. And of course, you're our girl and we're ready to sell. You're the one who's going to sell. 2 days later, they sent me a referral. And just because I told them, oh, if you sell right now, they may not have listed. And if they figured out in their own minds that I was just trying to get the sale, it would have hurt our relationship because I wasn't being authentic. I was breaking our trust. And so now, because of the way I treated them, not only will I get that business in the future, I'm going to get more business. He's a busy physician. He's the training person at a busy hospital here. And so they send me people. And so it really just comes down to, you get to a place, maybe it's age wise, maybe it's maturity wise, maybe it's after a certain number of losses in your life, where you say, what am I doing here if I'm not being true and I'm not being real? Because to keep up a life where it's not authentic, it's exhausting, it's tiring, and it's not productive. It doesn't pay. And so when you treat people well and you do the right thing and you admit when you're wrong and say, this, I made a mistake on this, it comes back tenfold. That's what I've found in my career.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So you co-own your brokerage, the firm. Okay. You're the number one agent in there. You command respect. People know who you are. They're remembering your video from years before. Which, by the way, did you jump in the pool? Did you actually jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. And it
Oh,
had
I
just
love
been painted and filled early April, and the water was so cold that when I jumped in, you say naturally, and you suck in, and we were all like, I was choking. I mean, it was cold. It was really cold.
It's authentic. That's the real
It
deal.
was. It was.
So how then? So you're the best, but you're also leading a brokerage of a ton of agents. How do you lead differently to foster not just performance, but that authenticity you speak of to support what you do?
Our group is pretty unique. Our business model is we are an elite group. Is easy for me to say because I'm speaking about the group. We don't take seat warmers at our brokerage. We have 30 agents, and we hand pick. Actually, we don't even recruit. When people come to us, we all decide if it's a good fit for our brokerage, not just I like them or one other person likes them. We go to other agents and say, you seem to probably have some history with this person. How do you feel about them? And they're all either producers already, or they are people that when you meet them, you go, oh, we got to get this guy because he's going to be something. You can just tell because he's always been that bright light. People come on, I have a text message right now from a girl who, once a year checks in and says, hey, I'd really like to come to the firm. And not everybody is a good fit. And so the group of people that we're working with, I learn from them as much as they learn from me. And we have a mentor style program that if you come and you're new, um, someone's committing to you. I have two business partners. So one of the three of us are saying, okay, Frank, I speak for you. And that means you and I are kind of married, at least for the next 6 months. You go to my appointments with me. I go to your appointments with you. And I teach you every single thing I know about this business. It is a big commitment. It's tiring, but it's also a way of giving back. You're teaching somebody a skill that can feed their family, that can change their lifestyle, that can help take care of their kids. And then you watch these people grow and it's very rewarding. And so I don't keep my secrets, not to the people that are in my company, and agents from other companies ask me, hey, and in other industries, can we get together? I'm having coffee with a girl tomorrow. I just want you to share some of your tactics with me. I'll tell anybody anything at any point. I'm always happy to share. And so I think the people that naturally came to our company, I think we're also like-minded, that like attracts like. And so they were already very authentic and already high achieving people. And that's why we found each other. That's why they sought me out. That's why I was drawn to them. That's why my partners liked them, because everybody is very similar in my firm in the way of drive, in the way of discipline, in the way of excitement. um, And so I think it's not always something that I have to teach. It's something that because I may be older or more experienced, or a little wackier, that I'm willing to try things. It's more things that I develop, not things that I have to teach, if that makes sense.
Mm, I love it. Well, and you're establishing up front, there's a commitment.
Mhm.
It's significant. 6 months. I'm like, oh, yeah, someone shows up and says 6 months, we're married at the hip.
And a lot of times, like I'm sometimes in my personal or my like last year, I wasn't able to commit to mentoring someone. And I've got a couple of people that I'm talking to now. And I've mentored 6 or 7 people in the last few years, and more than that over my career. And we do at the beginning of the year, with each agent, we sit down, we go through your numbers, your clients, we set goals, we dissect where did this business come from, how can we get more of this, who are you wasting time on? We come up with, you need to come up with this activity. We report back in 6 months. There's a lot of accountability there. It takes 3 full days back to back to back to back to sit down and do hour-long meetings with each agent. It's a lot of pouring in. And it takes way more than that to prepare. But it breeds this culture, um, that I just don't think it can be matched, if that makes sense. It's very different for a real estate brokerage.
yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Well, when you're pouring that kind of time into people, and we all know that when people are pouring time, and we can sense that, we know it does make an impact. It is that human connection. But then let me ask you this, I don't know how many agents there are in Memphis, thousands, maybe tens of thousands, whatever the number is.
It's under 5,000.
Under 5,000? Well, it's not a small number, it's a lot, right? So when you're one out of 5,000, that's a lot, right? And so you have your authenticity when they meet you, but before they meet you, they don't know that, right? They're just looking, they're like, oh, well, there's this agent, oh, and there's this person called Shannon, and she is the firm versus Keller Williams versus Coldwell, right? What's that marketing that you do that makes you stand out in the crowded landscape before they have a chance to know about your authenticity?
It's a very consistent marketing plan. If you just take a glimpse at what I do, it looks like something just exploded everywhere and it was accidental. But it's very, very manicured, very intentional, very tailored. My social media is kind of wild and wacky. But if you look at our website, if you look at our signs, if you look at my listing presentation, if you look at any ad we ever place, you will see every single time it's consistent. It's clean, it's fresh, it looks crisp, it looks like we know what we're doing. And it's a brand that people recognize. And we've only been, we started this is our, next week we celebrate our 4th birthday. And we were number 7 ranked by the Memphis Business Journal in all brokerages in the city. And there's a lot of big companies here. We've got a lot of big companies here. So to be number 7 and be 4 years old with 30 people is a pretty big deal. We were nominated for Small Business of the Year this year. We were a top 4 finalist for the Business Journal also. And so it's nice to have that recognition for such a young company. But we're consistent, and not just with the materials, but with the people. So I may have Peterson from my office who's at an event or who was on the cover of Memphis Fitness Magazine last month, and everybody associates him with our company. He is also our brand. Our people are more our brand even than the materials, and it's consistent. Everybody's high quality. They take care of themselves. They speak a certain way. They're educated. They know what they're doing. They're ethical, and so it just spreads. So my branding and my reputation is more than just me. It's my company, but it's doing a job for a client that a lot of people won't. Um, it's it's offering a service, it's offering an experience, it's doing the extra thing, it's following up, it's after the deal closes. And I know a lot of people say similar things, but what happens is I do a job for you, and it's next level. It's something that hopefully changed their mind if they had a bad experience with an agent before, and they say I couldn't do this without her. And then I make selections for my builders, and I help my clients with that. I'll have people 10 years after a transaction say, we're going to remodel our bathroom. Would you come and help make our selections? And I say, I'm so glad that you remembered that I told you I would love to do that. Because if I stay involved and they sell that house when their kid goes to college, I'm going to be the one that they're going to call because I came and offered to help them redesign their bathroom. That was my background before real estate. And so if I do this job for you, you trusted me 100%, even if it was hard, even if things happened that went wrong, but you and I were a team and you really felt like I cared as much about your transaction as you did, you're going to tell the next person that says, Frank, who should I use? You're going to not only say, oh, I've got an agent. You're going to say, oh, wait, you got to use Shannan. You have to. I have people that their friend or family member will have a house listed with somebody else, and they will call and harass them to death. Why didn't you call Shannan? That's why it's not selling. You have to call her. You have people that turn into your advocates for you. If you operate in a consistent way every single time that is the highest level possible for your craft, it feeds your business. I put things on social media. We will sponsor any little league team that ever comes to us. We will here, take our money. We'll buy your uniforms, whatever you need from us, any school, we do that. We do a lot on social media. We participate in the Vesta Home Show. We usually have the majority of the listings, and that's it. We don't do print out. We don't pay for marketing. Our clients are our marketing. And because we have such a big market share and because of our numbers, then when you go online and you look, number one agent, busiest agent, best agent, who's the most successful, when you start Googling those things, it will lead you to a lot of people in our office. We have people call our office and say, we've seen your stuff online. When I'm out in public now and someone will say, oh, what do you do? And I'll say, oh, I sell real estate. And they'll say, oh, what company? And when I say the firm, they say, oh, I know that company. I've seen that everywhere. And that's probably my biggest compliment, is that we're so new and that people know who we are, because of very, very strong consistency in the people and in the brand.
It's a theme we've all heard. Consistent marketing makes a difference. And I mean, and that's a testament to it for the success you've had in a short amount of time. So let's extrapolate that a little further, because number one on social media in Tennessee, okay, that's a lot bigger than just Memphis. So, like, what does that look like? How does that help your business to have that kind of reach in the state?
So there's one list that came out, and then there was another, and I think in the United States I'm like 80. So I've got some work to do. But a lot of people think, oh, if I'm on social media and if something goes viral or it has all this many likes and views, that's how I'm going to sell a lot of houses. It's not. That's not what sells houses. If you took my social media away today, my numbers would not change. What social media is it is a tool. It's a very much a tool. When you go through real estate school, they talk about your sphere of influence, and you're supposed to have a list. And when I went through real estate school, 15, 16 years ago, that list starts out at about 50 people. And then, as you grow it and you sell houses and you've been in the business a decade, your list is 250 people. Well, they say stay in front of your sphere. Well, that's lunches, coffees, postcards, emails, points of contact. To do that and to just individually reach out to people all the time, it's a lot, and you should still do it. But if you take social media, and I have 80,000 people who are watching what I do, not every day, but on a fairly regular basis, I didn't go to a coffee. I didn't go to a lunch. I sent my kid to camp this week for the first time, my 13-year-old. And I posted that it was pretty tragic and that he and I are both unwell, that he didn't want to go to camp. I didn't want him to go to camp, but we're growing. And then I went on to the camp little photograph pages on the app, and I could find my kid, and he's like of 100 kids, one little pin dot, and I could zoom in. And so I post on my stories, how hard am I stalking my kid at camp? This hard. And he's like just a little feather of an image. And I'm like, that's him. I found him. He's alive. And I have all these people respond, oh my God, the stalking of the camp page to find my kid, a proof of life. And people relate to that. And it's not me saying, here's my listing that's sitting here, but I've branded myself in such a way that people say, Shannan McWaters, the realtor, her kid is at camp. And so it's not just Shannon's kids at camp, that girl who sells real estate. Look, this is funny. She's stalking her kid at camp. And so I use a lot of my personal life in my stories and sometimes on my actual page. And people connect with that. And so I will see clients that I haven't seen in 6 or 7 years. And when we sit down to talk about listing their home, they know that I hiked in Europe 70 miles last year. They know that Billy went to camp for the first time. They know all these things about me, and I haven't seen them. But I was able to stay in front of them. And so I don't have a lot of lead generation. I have some, but you have to sift through a lot of weird stuff. So, but what I have is consistency and top of mind, in a way that I make one video that's less than a minute long, and every single client that's on social media remembers me. And then they see on my stories what I'm doing. They know that I was at the beach. I had people text me, hey, I was going to talk to you about listing our house, but I see you're at the beach with all of your kids. Where are you? And they have all these questions. Well, can you come over Monday when you get home? And so it's putting yourself out there, and it's a balance, because I think a lot of people on social media that follow me think, oh, she is exposed and I know everything about her. And people feel like that, and they develop this comfort with you that they don't always understand that you're showing them what you allow them to see. And it's very careful. What everything I post is very thoughtful. Does this make sense? Will this offend someone? Will this resonate with someone? I like to sometimes push it just a little bit, but not so far that I'm going to alienate a group of people. So I'm very careful about it. Even if it seems like a post, I just snapped a picture and threw it up. It's all very thoughtful because it is my business. I have people, when I'm talking and meet them in public or whatever, and they say, what do you do? And then they'll say, oh, wait, I've seen your videos. It works. It really does work, but it's just one tool. If you don't know how to get a 50-page inspection report back and get within a couple of $100s of guesstimating the repairs yourself because you've seen all these repairs, if you don't know what a restricted valley is on a roof and why it can be a problem, if you don't know how often the vent pipes are in contact with combustible material, if you don't know repairs in and out, if you don't know what a continue to market is, if you don't have the nuts and bolts down of your craft, all the social media in the world is not going to help your business. Because when you show up and you help someone with their largest investment or their pool of largest investments, and you screw it up because you don't know what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're hilarious on social media or if you're smoking hot on social media or anything. If you make someone lose money because of your inability or your incompetence, doesn't matter what you post on a daily basis. So that's why I say you could take my social media away. I would still sell the same number of houses, because at the end of the day, that's not what's doing it. I have to be able to back all that up with the skills and the deep knowledge of a business that's pretty complicated.
Mm. No, that's a good word. That's a good word. And you mentioned earlier just about, sometimes we don't get it right. We got to own those mistakes, and we've all been there, right? If you're an entrepreneur, there's a 100% chance we've screwed something up. Right? Despite our best efforts, sometimes it doesn't work out. So to be able to have that knowledge base, both with confidence and be able to own the mistakes, I mean that's a great person to work with because you're putting yourself in a chance of high success. I love it. So I want to step back for a moment because as I was preparing for this, I noticed that you started back in the fashion industry, had a boutique, got into home remodeling, design. So it's kind of like you were in these different worlds. Did you have any ideas you were doing those different things? It would prepare you for what you're doing today.
No, no. I before I got into real estate, I'd had over 23 different jobs.
Wow.
I've been on my own since I was 16. I have never met my dad. My mom had me at an early age. I never graduated college. I tried to go to college, but was working a lot, working a couple of jobs. Just couldn't figure it all out. And so my job selection was always what is going to pay for my life. How am I going to survive? And so I've worked at dry cleaners, a kid's farm, a library. I decorated the windows of a flower shop. And at one point, I opened a business. It was a salon, coffee bar, and boutique. And it became productive enough that I decided to sell it. And so I sold it, and I really liked the boutique part of it. And I had a knack for picking out clothes for people. And so I opened another boutique, and but it was just a boutique in the town where I live now. And so and I did all my buying, and I had to learn everything is okay. I have no clue what I'm doing, but yes, let's do it. Let's figure it out. So I learned how to go to New York and LA and California, like Dallas, and learned how to buy. I didn't know what a 1221 was. Well, that's the different sizes that you order and how many based on your demographic. And so I ordered my first year what I thought I would need, for the first 6 months of inventory. And I ran out of 6 months worth of inventory in the first 30 days. And so I was onto something. I picked a line that fit women's bodies that was still really cute, but it wasn't like cut for teenagers. So I was onto something in this suburban market. And so it took off, and I was like, what in the world? I thought this was just going to be something to hold me over for a year or two. And it blew up, and it did so well. And then 2005, 6, 7 came, and nobody wanted $250 jeans, even if the designer would show up at my store and, fit people for the jeans. So I said, okay, I don't want to give up this business. I love it. The world is falling apart. So I'm going to try to hang on to it. I was doing trunk shows at night with my clothes. And a friend of mine said, look, I bought a flooring store. I don't know what I'm doing either. Do you want to sell flooring? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so there weren't a lot of women in that world at the time. But I knew what looked good because I had a background in fashion, and I just always kind of knew this looks good together. And that looks bad together. And so I started approaching builders instead of just going to one person at a time for flooring. And I went to a couple of builders and I said, hey, I want to sell this hardwood carpet and tile to you for your subdivision. And the first one that I went to, he said, okay. He said, well, let's go walk through our houses. So we went and walked through, and I was like, these are not, you're picking the wrong things. These houses are not very pretty. And he said, okay, well, what would you put in here? And I said, this is what you should do. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. He goes, okay, well, you want to put the hardwood in all these houses? And I said, yeah, that's what went there to do. And he goes, why don't you do the carpet and tile also? He goes, how much is a yard of carpet? And I go, can I use your bathroom? And so I went into the bathroom, and I called this guy, George, that worked for Shaw. And I go, George, how much is a yard of carpet? And like, what is it? And he goes, what? I go, this guy just gave me 75 houses, and I need to know how much the carpet is. And he goes, a guy gave you what? I go, just tell me how much a yard of carpet is. And he goes, oh, it's $18. And you're going to put 6-pound pad. I was like, pad, what's pad? And he said, just tell him $16, $18, 6-pound pad, turnkey. I said, okay. I go out and tell him. He goes, okay, that sounds good. He was like, you want to do the tile too? I go, yes, of course I do. I knew nothing about any of it. And I just said, yes, I'll do it. I'll take it. And it turned out it was a great business for me because I learned I would redesign bathrooms for remodels and I would draw them to scale. I don't know how or why I knew how to do that, but I taught myself. I would make all the selections. I would bring in color samples. And these builders would say, if you will pick all our selections, countertops, paint colors, everything, lighting, we'll let you install all the flooring. And I was like, yeah, of course. And so I, I kept doing that for a while. Well, my boutique never rebounded because the world really just went off the deep end those years in the Great Recession. And I was making a really good living in flooring. And so I closed my boutique, unfortunately, and the flooring thing just kept getting better and better. Well, then I got married, and my husband was in real estate, and I would go to showings with him. And the people would say, well, what do you think of this house, Shannan? And I would say, you can't buy this house. And they're like, why? And I go, well, don't you have a king size bed? This room has a queen and it won't even fit the nightstands, two of them. It only fits one. You can't buy this house or you're going to have to get a different bed. And where's your kid going to sleep? And so I was just very honest. And then we'd walk in another house and they would say, well, uh, we like this house and but we don't think it would work for us. And I'm like, oh, no, you would repaint this room and I bet you could get rid of this closet and move this over and put a bathroom in here and you would have the number of bathrooms you needed. And so, but that was my background from flooring, and I could pick all the colors because I was used to putting outfits together for people, and I was used to decorating the windows of flower shops and all these different things. And I worked with kids, I worked with adults. I had a really diverse background. And so as I started moving into real estate, it was just kind of a natural fit. And all of these jobs, I waited tables. So I knew what customer service meant. I knew how to try to make people happy. And so as all of those things kind of melded, real estate started kind of making sense for me. And so then the clients on the weekend would say, hey, can Shannan go with us, to look at houses? And I didn't even have my license yet. And so then I decided to get my license, and I kept the flooring for 6 years after I got my license because my whole life I'd always had two jobs and it was really uncomfortable for me to just have one job. But I got so busy, I couldn't do both. And a lot of the builders that I had been selling flooring to, that I had to say, I am so sorry, but I can't keep helping you. I'm just going to sell houses now. Several of them got rid of their agents and said, if we hire you to sell them, will you still make our selections? And I said, oh my gosh, of course, yes. Oh, wow. And so it just kind of transitioned naturally. And so now I go in and I know very easily how to prep a home to get it ready to sell. I know what colors to use. You don't always just whitewash a house. Sometimes there are very warm tones in cabinets and other fixtures that you're not going to be changing, that you need to use a different color. So one size does not fit all. And if you don't know that, you can make some big mistakes with redoing someone's home to prep it for market. If a client finds a house in the neighborhood they want, but it's just not quite right, I offer my services after closing with no charge. I come in and we make all your selections. I work with the contractor and we get the house up to the way you want it to be. So every job that I've ever had before led me to real estate, even though I just kind of accidentally ended up there. It wasn't, I didn't grow up when I was a little girl. I wanted to be first lady at one point, and I wanted to be a weather girl. Those were my two things I had hoped to be. Selling carpet and real estate was never on my list. But now in hindsight, there's nothing I would be better at than at real estate. Nothing.
So the key to getting, so two takeaways. The first is the key to being a very successful agent, get really good at flooring and get to know all the builders. Okay, maybe not, but I'm sitting there thinking, oh, that's a pretty good strategy. So I like that. But I have to ask, just tongue in cheek, you mentioned you're talking to the builder, he's going to give you the hardware, you go to the restroom to get a carpet number. What happened when he asked about the tile?
Fortunately, tile is so much more complicated. And he said something like, can you do turnkey for $5 a foot? And I'm like, oh, I'm sure we can. And because I'm quick on my feet, I said, we need to look at some materials. I didn't know enough to know. It depends on the materials. We have to get the material costs down. So then I left the next week and I went to Dalton, Georgia, and I went to Carpet College. And they take you through all the carpet mills. And it was actually fascinating. And they teach you how it's made. And some's made of plastic bottles and the different fibers. And then I followed tile installers around and watched how they were measuring. I watched all the materials that would go in there. I'd spend days and days on these jobs. I would go watch the hardwood guys. Why did you switch directions? Why are you coming off the wall that far with the wood? I really learned I said yes first. I just said yes, even though I had no clue. And I didn't act like I knew what I was doing either. I was confident and they could tell I would work hard, but I didn't say I know everything there is about this business. They just sensed I was going to work hard. But then I went and I learned everything I could. I went to Home Depot and Lowe's and wore those people out. What is this material? Can you put anything hot on it? What is this material? Oh my gosh, what are these cabinets made of? If water got down in there, would they not get puffy? Like, what is this? And so I would go in there and they're like, oh my God, that girl is back. Get her out of here. And we had something here called the Quantum Showroom where it had all high end everything. And you could go, and they obviously were trying to sell things to people. And I would go harass them. Hey, you got a few minutes? What is this? What is this? And I just like obsessively learned every finish you could possibly get your hands on and your eyes on so that when it came up, I could pitch new ideas and I could identify it.
That's such a great word there for agents as well as investors. And that's really, you've taken that time to really know your craft. It's not common. Well, it's very uncommon to come across an agent with that level of knowledge of understanding the aspects of not just the design, but the construction behind it, how it works. You talked about going to carpet school in Dalton, which, yeah, I mean, you can go up there and there's carpet everywhere. So it's hard to walk out of Dalton and not know everything about carpet. But it's just great. So many times I see investors and it's like, oh, I just want to pay the contract. And it's like, well, they just know, they just know, they just know. And unfortunately, you end up getting taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens to homeowners, it happens to investors, and the stories are endless. And so I love that you shared that it wasn't just, hey, I'm selling houses. You put the time in to invest in your craft. And your craft is more than putting a sign in the yard and hoping someone buys the house. It's truly understanding the actual product to the best.
And it's not just products that we're dealing with. We're also dealing with people and emotions.
That's
And
a
so
whole
there's a
other thing.
whole other level, and that's where podcasts come in, books come in. It's part of the reason I hiked 70 miles in Europe and hiked 20,000 miles up and 20,000 miles down, because I'm constantly doing self-development and working on my people skills and working on empathy and working on understanding other people. I've taken every personality test that there is, Briggs, Myers, Enneagram. I mean, any single thing. I can tell you all my things, and I can tell you usually what other people are too, because, for example, I did this leadership class, and one thing that I discovered, I'm an extreme extrovert, and whatever the extreme of all the extremes on the extroverted, let's go get it. I'm excited. We're going to do all the things. We're going to do everything really fast and really hard. I'm here. And then the introverted, I'm calculated. I have to think things over. I'm never spontaneous. I've got to be deliberate. That's on this other end. And we did this class, and a good friend of mine who's a closing attorney, he was this guy, and I was all the way over here. And once I discovered how different were, I got with him on a regular basis. And I said, Brian, let me ask you this. So somebody like me, my personality, when I come to you and I'm excited and I'm telling you all the things and I'm talking fast, and he said, I want to punch you in the face so bad. Like, I just want to and I was like, really? You don't love that? And it just started clicking with me. And every time we would get finished with the results, the teacher would say, because it was a number, all right, I just got to ask, who is 43222? And I'd go, That's me. And she'd go, wow, that is really polarized on this end, how this way you are. And she said, I want to tell you something, not positive or negative. She said, you're here, not positive or negative. This is where you are.
Right.
There are most people are about right here. There are a lot of people who are here. She said, what you need to know, if you want to connect and you want to communicate effectively with even just these people, they're not coming up here. They're not bouncing off the walls. They're not screaming from the mountaintops. They're not trying to do some big movement or whatever. They're here. You got to get here. And for these people, you're going to have to get some duct tape and you're going to have to get here. And so I actually went through an exercise for a year or two where when I would program someone's name in my phone, I would put an X by their name if they were this guy. And because they would call me up and usually they wanted some numbers, they had one or two questions, and they wanted me to let them off the phone. And so I had this one guy, Gary. He calls me up. And normally he would call me and I'd go, Gary, oh my God, how are you? I saw Karen the other day. She looked great. She was playing tennis. It was so good. She said, your grandkids are doing this. Are you still flying? Do you go to Costco ever? Oh my gosh, I love your house. Are we ever going to sell that? Do you want to go look? Look. And normally that's how I would just want to talk to Gary and get everything out and tell him how much I love him. And so after I went through this training, Gary calls me and we had gone through a transaction and he was about to close on a house. And he said, he called me and he said, hello, Shannan. And I said, hello, Gary. He
That's it.
said, I have a couple of questions. And I said, okay. And he asked me question number one. And I said, okay. And he asked me question number two. And I said, okay. I said, let me look those things up and make a phone call and I'll get back to you. And he said, thank you. And we got off the phone. And I knew and I felt that that was the first time he didn't hate me. Because he just wanted two answers for me. He didn't want to talk about where he's going to put his Christmas tree in his new house.
Right.
And so you have some people that they don't want to talk about the numbers. They want to know where their baby that they went through in vitro for 4 years to get what room is going to be best for them. And is it close to their bedroom because he has some medical issue. And so learning myself and learning other people and self development and self improvement is the other thing I have to know just as much as what countertops and what light fixtures if you want to be top in your field. It's not just the house and it's not just the people. It's got to be both.
No, that's true. That's true. And I was sitting there when you were giving that example thinking, yeah, I'm probably more like that gentleman, more on the analytical side. So if I get a phone call and I get a verbal explosion, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But some people love it, right? Some people,
Yeah.
and it's just everybody's different, and that's the beauty of studying people is we get to appreciate all the different ways to communicate with people and meet them where they're at. Let me ask you this, kind of piggybacking off of that. So you get into real estate, you're building the business, you already had success in the flooring business, you had all these contacts, you're connecting with people. Love the move, by the way, on getting the builder's business now in another aspect of what they're doing. Love that. What was the toughest lesson you've had to learn thus far in this journey? Almost like the biggest failure, so to speak, but that in turn, because you experienced it, it actually catapulted you forward.
Um, I don't know if this has catapulted me forward, but it's definitely something that I've learned and that I've had to accept. Um, Everybody is not always cheering for you, unfortunately. And my heart wants to believe that they are. And if you're selling $4 or $5 million a year, everybody can cheer for you then. Everybody can like you. It's usually okay. The higher your numbers grow, the less people there are cheering for you sometimes. Um, it doesn't mean that they dislike you and they don't hate you, but your circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And people assume the opposite. They assume your circle is like this. My circle over the years has just gotten tinier and tinier and tinier. And what is there is very high quality, not a lot of filler there as far as just fluff in relationships. But that's been something over the last 3 or 4 years in particular that has become apparent to me. And it's a hard lesson. But now that I just kind of accept that, I'm really grateful for the people that are there, friend wise, personal wise, client wise. Everybody, I'm not for everybody. I want every single listing. If I see a listing online and it's not done well and the pictures are stupid and somebody used their iPhone and and the house wasn't ready, I'm like, God, why did that idiot get that listing? They don't deserve that listing, Or I'll see somebody bought a house and I'll look up what agent sold it, and I'm like, that guy sold like one house in his life. Why did they get that listing? Why did they get that buyer? That's how I used to feel all the time, and now I've had working relationships where it was a bad fit, that my personality and their personality. I had a closing this week that it wasn't the best fit in personalities. And I got the job done and it closed. But when I was offered more business, I just said, I don't think we're the best fit. It was a really hard transaction to get through. And every time my phone lit up with this person's name, my stomach hurt. And they didn't feel like I was responding the right way to them and doing things and it wasn't even personal. It was just not a good fit. And so I've had to accept that not all people are going to be a good fit for me, and I'm not going to be a good fit for them. And the sooner you lay that down and you put it aside and you make space, then the client, the investor, the builder, the friend, the what the sooner that there's more room and space and energy for that. And then you end up with this circle of personal and professional relationships. Same thing with the agents at our company. You end up with this group that every time you open your phone or you go to an appointment, you say, or an office meeting, you say, I'm happy to be here. I'm really happy to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And people feel that.
Yeah. Mm. Well, it is so true that it's funny because I've actually said something like that before. It's like, hey, not all good professionals that are good at what they do are meant to work together.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because some people actually will take offense, and you're just like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, it's not a good or bad. And so it's when you're sharing that, I was like, yeah, I can relate to that. So I want to ask you, you're kind of a rare blend, high level performance, high level heart. It's not common. Usually it's someone's one or the other. Clearly you have both. And not to say it doesn't exist, but it's not common. People are not used to seeing that type of person all the time. How do you, and then you're running this brokerage that's been nominated, growing, obviously just so much positive. How do you stay grounded?
Um, I I grew up with not a lot, and there's a lot of chatter about a scarcity mindset. I will always have that. It doesn't matter what I sell or how much I make or what awards we receive or I receive. I was number one last year, and I assume this year I'll probably sell nothing and have to give my house back to the bank. Like I live like that. I always think it could come crashing down. I could lose it all. I could not ever close another deal. My business partners, we have credit lines on our business just in case. And I say, if the market tanked and we didn't sell anything and we had to close our doors, and every year they say, have you seen our numbers? Like, stop saying that. We are fine. And my logical, when I look at the numbers, because numbers don't lie, I say, okay, everything is fine. I look at my numbers, everything is fine. But there's still something really deep in me that is always based on that girl that I was that grew up with nothing, that I don't take for granted that it's just going to keep coming to me. And so I see these really busy agents in our city that are doing such a good job, and there are teams that are selling 3 times what I'm selling. And I think, wow, that's just amazing. And agents who aren't even, or who are selling half of what I sell. And I still think, man, I wish I could do things like they do it. I guess I don't see myself in a position to just sit back and say, this business is just going to come to me without the work that I've been putting in for the last 15 years. I'm going to have to continue to work and come up with new creative ways to reinvent myself, to change our firm, to add things that other people aren't doing, um, to still be willing to put in those hours. I just don't take anything for granted ever.
I love it. Just a deep level of appreciation.
Hmm.
I
And
love that.
fear. A little bit of fear,
A little
sprinkled with some
fear,
fear.
a little healthy dose of fear. Fear managed can be a good thing
Yes.
for sure, for sure. Let me ask you one more question. There's so many agents in the world. Like you were talking about 5,000. I'm in Atlanta. I mean, I don't know that it's what
Yeah.
30,000 or something. I mean, we have 7 million people or some 6.5 million.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Whatever it is, it's a lot of people and a
Yeah.
lot of agents. And so, but it's the 80-20 rule, right? 20% are doing 80% of the business, probably more like 95,
Yeah, it's
5,
90-10 in this business
something
lately.
like that. But of that 80, 90, 95%, whatever it is, there's a lot of them that do want to succeed in this business. And so this question, I guess, is for those listeners and for the investors that, because invariably we're going to come across these people. What's your message to agents to be like bold and well, not to say unafraid, as we just said, fear can be okay, but to be bold and take that step, innovate, be authentic, be yourself, because it sounds so simple. And we all understand the English language. We know what it means, but very few actually will take those steps. What's your message to those types?
I think the first thing people have to do is you have to be honest with yourself, who and what you really are. And a lot of us don't know that. We have an image of what we have produced and what we think and what we tell people we are. But sometimes we haven't done the work to get down to the nitty gritty to really know who and what we are. And that's the hard part, but that's also where the magic comes. And I always advise people, if you're not sure, what am I important? Go to people the closest to you and ask questions and be prepared for the truth and say, what are the best things about me? Like what would you want my advice on? What do you think of me when a problem comes up? Like which problems do you think I could solve? And really importantly, when you leave me, how do you feel? Do you feel energized? Do you feel more educated? Do you feel really stupid? Do you feel like what how did you leave our meeting? And that feedback alone, if they felt like they learned something, then maybe you're an educator. Maybe you're educating your clients. Maybe you are educating your investors. Maybe you're educating other agents. Maybe that's what you do. If people feel energized and inspired, maybe that's your business model. You attract people, you make their experience easier, you lighten their load, you brighten their day by going to an appraisal, which sounds terrible, like doesn't sound fun, or an inspection, but you take people through the experience and make them feel like it wasn't as hard as it actually was. So maybe you're just really numbers driven, and maybe you can do a spreadsheet like nobody's business. And those people that want those type of people, they're going to find you. So find what you are really, really good at and go hard, like go really, really hard after that and show it and demonstrate it and put it on social media and have written presentations when you sit down with clients about it. Tell your friends about it, like blast it everywhere and embody that, like really be that person, but start with that original gift or gifts that you have. Because if I came on and went to the world and said, I'm going to teach everybody all about numbers, and I've got 93 spreadsheets, and we're going to dissect the data today, and I wore the right thing, and I had your glasses and all of that, uh, people are going to, for about a few minutes, listen to it, and they're going to say, I mean, she knows numbers and she knows how to price a house, but that she's not that girl. She's not a CPA. And so people want what's real. But if you don't know who the real you is, it's false advertisement. You're marketing the wrong thing.
Mm, love it. Love it. No, it's a good word. I appreciate you sharing that. And as you were sharing that, I was like, maybe we should do a second show and just talk about marketing because I think we would have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's just such a good word. And I just love the spirit you share with people. I mean, people, you can feel it, you can sense it. You have such a passion for what you do. And the reality is, we're all attracted to people that have a passion for what they do, right? It's that human connection. We all can sense it. Doesn't matter what the field is. We sense it, we know it, and right or wrong, we're attracted to it, right? Like, and that's just human nature. So I love that you've been able to use your passion and your skill to create a lot of success for yourself, and I applaud you for it. There, and you're not done. You're still rocking and rolling. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you again, Shannan, for coming on the show. And yeah, let's do another one and talk marketing
Yeah.
because we don't really dive into that, but that's such a big deal in the world of real estate because it is hard to stand out. And
Yeah.
you've made it happen. So I'd love to have that conversation. But for our listeners, if you're in the Memphis area or if you're in Tennessee, or by the way, she's also licensed in other states. So reach out to Shannan, chat with her, because I have a feeling that if you have a house anywhere near where she could sell it, she's
That's
going to
true.
get it sold for you. So, and she's going to tell you exactly what you need to hear to make it happen. So I encourage you to reach out to her. The links to connect with her will be below in the description. Shannan, I want to thank you again for being on today. I look forward to continuing this, but can you leave us with a final word?
I appreciate you having me on. I've done a couple of talks and podcasts lately, and it's actually been a gift to me because I've been in this business for a while, and you get in the routine and you're just working and you're selling and you're going to appointments and you're picking your kid up from this and that. And to be able to stop for an hour and talk to a new friend and share your journey in this business, it makes you reflect. And it gives me a whole new appreciation for what I'm doing. And so the gift is to me that I got to stop and remember, yeah, I've come a long way. And I'm so lucky to be sitting here and that you even wanted me as your guest. And so I'm just really appreciative that I got to do this today.
I love it. I love it. Well, Shannon, I want to thank you for being on today. Thank you for that kind word. I definitely look forward to doing this again, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Okay, thanks.